Hello, I'm Hava Volterra, and this is Kitchen Smarts. I met Mica when I moved to Oakland. I love her food and loved her restaurant, Pomella. Mica opened Pomella in the early days of COVID, which was truly an act of heroism, and she provided an amazing space to get great food, sit outside, and socialize, even in the depth of the epidemic. She is also a force of nature. And yet Pomella had to close earlier this year, and Mica is already plotting out next steps. We talked about her culinary path, and we talk in particular about the restaurant business, what works, what doesn't, and what can be learned from her experience. So without further ado, Mica Talmor. Mica, it's great to connect with you. You know, we haven't seen each other in person for several years now, and the way we met was that I had moved to Oakland. And actually, I heard about your restaurant at the time, even before I met you, and that was Babait, which was an Israeli restaurant on Piedmont Street, near Piedmont in Oakland. I would say a very hip street that had some really good restaurants, and Babait was one of the stars. And Israeli, Middle Eastern, North African cuisine, which I love. And so, of course, I went there and enjoyed it without even knowing you. And then we met later. So I'm just giving the listeners a little bit of a background. We met later because we were part of a group called Illuminashi that were Jews in the food business, I would say. And that was great, and we got to spend time together. So I know a lot about your path from in that period, but I don't know much about your background, and I actually would love to hear more about your background and what got you to the culinary space. And then we'll fast forward to a restaurant you opened later during COVID, Pomella, and that you closed just recently, to our distress, I must say, to my distress. But again, let's start from the beginning. Like, what brought you here? What brought you to the food business? That would be great to hear from you.
So good morning, Hava. It's great to talk
Good
to you.
morning.
It's great to see your face. So I'm, Israeli and I'm Jewish, and like many Jewish families, food and love are interchangeable. And that's how we often express love within the family. And that's how I got into food. My mom was a working mom, so at a pretty young age, we had to kind of fend for ourselves for lunch, which is the bigger meal of the day for Israelis usually. And so that's one connection to food. At the same time, many of our family members lived in villages. My grandma lived in a village as well, and she lived on a dairy farm. My family had a dairy farm, so I spent a lot of even though my immediate family lived in the city, the extended family lived on farms. So I would spend a lot of the holidays, and there's quite a lot of them from school, and the summer holiday I would spend in the farm. And so very early I saw the connection between the land and food. And, I milked cows, I picked eggs, I worked the fields. I was around my grandma, who was constantly cooking, pickling, preserving, making jams, olives, cheese, stuff like that. So, and I loved it. I loved working the farm, and I loved being with my grandma in the kitchen. So that really set up my passion, not only for food, because we all love food, but also my very specific way of cooking, which is very produce forward. I mean, our cuisine as a whole is very produce forward, but especially for me, I just people always ask me what my favorite dish is, and I don't have a favorite dish, but like I can be moved to tears by a perfect tomato. So it's very early, early memories and very early attachment to everything that comes from earth, from the ground.
So, I mean, I can understand what brings you to restaurants, but tell me what your path was. I mean, did you always know you wanted to run a restaurant, or were you doing other things and happened on it?
I didn't really know. This wasn't my, I didn't have, I didn't think I was going to be a chef because, when I grew up, 70s and 80s in Israel, they were, and 90s, there were no women chefs. So there were no role models there. I don't know if you remember back in the day, I think it was, Aviva and Celia was like the first Israeli, like, known restaurant that had women
I
chef,
know that. Yeah.
but it just wasn't something that I had a role model. But when I finished my army service, I was a little not in the best of place. And I was already working. Even before that, I worked as a waitress, like every young person, just for income. It's a very easy kind of job to get. So I kind of rolled into that, and then I decided to take a cooking school after the army. I decided to check that out, and I did. And then I ended up doing a stage in Tel Aviv, and I just I really loved it. I was good at it, and I liked it pretty much from the get-go. And then I decided I was working in Israel, some fine dining in a hotel. And the hotel, they put me into the pastry department pretty early on, and I really liked it. So I ended up coming to San Francisco for the California Culinary Academy at the time. Doesn't exist
Oh,
anymore.
I
Because
see.
they
Okay.
had one of the, if not the best pastry programs in the world at that time. We're talking 1998.
Okay. I did not know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they
Yeah.
had Peter Reinhardt, which ended up being like the American bread guru, was my bread teacher, for example. It was just a moment in time where that school was particularly good at baking and pastry. It was one of the strongest programs in the world. So I ended up in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am. And
Okay.
I always wanted to be like this famous pastry chef. That was kind of like my ambition. And then I needed money, so I ended up in catering, and just for income. And then I really liked catering because you get to meet the people, and it's always a party, and it's always a good time. And I always say you're set
Mhm.
up for success in catering. Just don't mess it up. So that's because people want to have a good party, right?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Just think about it. When
Uh,
someone goes to a
that's
restaurant, maybe,
true.
yeah. When someone goes to a restaurant, maybe they're like, more concerned about their own ego, or, how the way they feel about the restaurant has to do with so many different things, right? But when someone's ordering an event, their intention is to have a good time. Their intention is to love what you're doing. You really just need to not mess it up. It's a very different place to be. And, people only remember if it's exceptionally good or exceptionally bad.
Uh-huh.
So most of the time, it's very positive interaction. And, I worked for many, many caterers, and I just love that. And while I was, I graduated, I started working in fine dine. And, I would spend my everyday work in a fine dine restaurant in a basement in San Francisco, where I would work. I'd get there before there was light and leave after
Mm-hmm.
the light was gone. Very long shifts in the basement where, sure, you get reviews and accolades and all that kind of stuff, but your everyday is in a basement in San Francisco.
I think it's underestimated how physically difficult, how long the hours are,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how stressful it is to work in dining. So,
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of chefs now that are trying to change that,
mhm.
because the burnout is so great and the injuries are severe. And I think there's many of us, including me, who lead organizations that are trying to change that. But we're talking, what I'm telling you now was, in the early 2000s, where this kind of understanding didn't exist yet.
Right.
So we were just, um,
Mhm.
yeah, we were working a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my point was that I was working as a pastry chef, which I thought was my dream, in a fine dining restaurant. And on the weekends and the evenings, I would pick up catering shifts because I didn't make enough money at the restaurant because the pay was really low.
Yeah.
And I found out that, just emotionally, the reward was greater at the catering because you got to be often in beautiful settings
Mm.
and you got to meet the customers and you
Yeah.
got to interact and in a very positive atmosphere. And
Yeah.
so my first business was a catering company before I even opened the
Oh,
bite.
I see. I was just about to interject that the other thing about catering is most of the people there, and it's a strange way of putting it, but they're
Mm.
not paying for it. So they're guests. And
Yes,
so it makes it all that much sweeter for them, right?
absolutely. They're,
Yeah.
they're, they're gonna have, I mean, they're gonna have a great time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
very different.
Okay.
They're not
Okay.
analyzing the dishes. They're taking
Yeah.
photos and
Yeah.
smiling and having a great time, Even when it's a memorial, it's
Yeah.
still a good time.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because you're reminiscing, you're together, you're within your friends and family. Maybe some of them you haven't seen in a while. I mean, events have something very magical to them.
That's interesting.
People
Okay.
sometimes kind of diss or, don't appreciate catering for what it is. And of course,
Yeah.
there's the intimacy with the customers. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you're in people's homes, you're
Yes.
there in some of the most intimate moments. Um, you can see the dynamics within the family. When you're in charge of the organization like I was, you get to sometimes you have a relationship for a year with someone who's planning a wedding.
Yeah.
Like you're talking to them for a while, you get you get sometimes we would make bets of who's gonna divorce and who's gonna stay together, just of how they maneuver through the planning. Yeah, there's something very intimate, very rewarding. There's a lot of relationships there. Yeah.
Okay. So
But
so
yeah,
you started a
sidetrack.
catering company,
Well, I
and
I worked for a
were
bunch of
you
catering companies and I also worked for Savoy Events and I used to run events for Savoy Events. And then Ellen Tessman, the proprietor, came to me one day and she said, I'm going to retire and I want you to take over my business. So then I took over Savoy Events in 2005. And that was my that was a really big growth step. And that was my catering company for the next 15 years. And then we had a really, really big project in 2014 with really nice revenue. So we used that revenue to open the first restaurant, which was Babite. It was the reason we opened Babite, and I was then partnered with my ex-husband, was that we had a contract with Munchery. Remember, it was a food prepare meal, like meal
Yes, I
selling
remember
back in the day.
Manchuria. Yeah, yeah,
So I was one
VC
of their
backed. Yeah.
yes. So
Okay.
I was one of their chefs before they built their own commissary. So while they were building their own commissary to make all the food in-house, they were hiring different chefs to make the food, and they would send a big truck and they would pick up all the food from us 3 times a week. And we made thousands of pieces of food, like endless. And they hired me to make Israeli food because that's something that they didn't have yet. And they knew that I was Israeli. And that was my first time to actually make Israeli food. Before that, I would make whatever, whenever, my specialty as a pastry chef was actually Asian fusion. So totally
Mm.
not that.
Okay.
But because the line was so successful, we decided to open an Israeli restaurant because we saw that there was a market for it.
Sure. Sure. And I think it was actually that was when Ottolenghi came into the
Yeah.
scene, and yes, it was a cuisine that had no interest for a long time, and suddenly it exploded. That was my impression of it in
Yeah.
terms of interest. In terms of interest, yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, absolutely. So it was a good time to
So,
do that.
all right. So you had Babite, which was
Mhm.
a great restaurant, because I managed to get in there in the last days of because that's when I arrived in Oakland, um, and then you closed it down, and I think it had to do with well business. Your husband, I'm not sure really, but you
It was a
closed it.
lawsuit. The building had sold. So yeah,
Uh,
it was
okay,
devastating. Yeah.
okay. The building is sold. Okay, all right. So I mean I think a lot of times when restaurants close, it has to do with leases and things that that are out of control of the owners of the
Yeah, I think
restaurants.
that often restaurants are opened, operated by people who are not business people. So I'm a chef, trained chef and pastry chef. And then, you're like, oh yeah, I'm a chef and pastry chef. I'm going to open a restaurant, right? But I didn't know enough about business. So when it comes to contracts, leases, all that kind of stuff, you're often dealing with companies and individuals that are not the kindest. And this is where a lot of us fall. Because we don't know how to protect ourselves because we're not business majors, right? We don't, at that time, honestly, I didn't actually even handle it. My ex-husband handled that whole thing. If you ask me today, I would never, ever sign anything that I didn't personally handle, that I didn't, consult a lawyer and all that. But at the time, I just didn't know. At the time, I was focused on the food part of it. But the food part of it is a very, very small part of it. As we continue to talk about Pomella and
Uh,
what I've done later.
all right, let's go on to Pomella. Okay, okay, point made.
So
So, okay,
after that whole fiasco, so we ended up closing the bite in August of 2018. And
okay.
it was devastating. Like that lawsuit took down the entire business. So both the catering and the restaurant, it took us down personally. We ended up in bankruptcy, both as a corporation, as an individual, which is also very crazy, and things that, again, I didn't know and now would know better, because that doesn't make any sense, right? Why do you even have a corporation if you can be sued for personally? But
Right.
anyhow,
Yeah, I don't. Okay. Fair
exactly.
enough. Let's go.
Let's
Let's
just
go on.
move. I learned that the legal system is not the justice system, and that it takes different skills to maneuver that system. I learned a lot, and maybe I would have been cheaper to just go and take a business class, but I didn't even know enough to know that.
Fair enough.
So that's one of the things that I did after we closed Babite and Savoy Events, was to take business classes. And so
I mean, you were very competent when you were opening Pomella, I must say. So I was super impressed.
very
So,
different.
yeah.
Very different. But anyways, so we closed in August and we bankrupt, and I needed to make money right away. And so I immediately jumped back into catering. For a short time, I was getting through using a friend's business, but then opened a new business in September. So like a month later, I opened Pomella as an LLC, and I started doing catering, which is the things that I know how to do. And then I was looking for a commissary kitchen. And in my search for a commissary kitchen, I contacted a friend that you might know, Chris Pastina. He's the restaurateur here in Oakland, and I knew he had a commissary for one of his restaurants, and I was wondering if I could get in or what's he's doing. And I talked to him, and he's like, "What about the Chow building?" And I don't know if you remember, but the building where Pomella was called the Chow building, because Chow
Yeah.
did that whole build out there. And I was like, oh, and so I gave him my, 2 cents about what should happen to that building, as if he's asking me about that. And he's like, no, 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 no. How about you opening a restaurant at the Chow building? And I was like, oh, I'm bankrupt. No one's going to give me a lease. I wasn't even looking into opening a restaurant, all that, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, Mica, get over yourself. We have all been bankrupt. I'm getting you a meeting. And that was
Okay.
that.
All
And
right.
that was that. I met with the landlords. They were lovely. They were so nice that I thought maybe they didn't know that I had a different restaurant and I had to close it, and the whole dispute with the landlord over there. So I mentioned it, and they're like, oh, yeah, we know. We just love your cauliflower salad with salmon. I'm like, okay. And that was that. But of course, like I mentioned, I have taken some food management business classes. And so this time things were very different. We signed a very strong lease. I got TI. We did a lot of, they split the whole building into 3 units. This was a whole different build out. This was a whole different scale. And
Okay.
so it took a while to build and to
Right.
permit. And then I
Yes.
got my final permit to operate in March 19 of 2020, just as the
Okay.
shutdown was announced.
Uh-huh.
And
You of 2020. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
of
Okay.
2020, because I signed the lease in like June of 19, at the end of June of 19. And then, we went into build out. And first we got the kitchen done so I can start doing catering again. And I did. My final event was January 25 of 2020. I remember it was a wedding for 300 people. And you remember that kind of stuff because I just took a pause for a month to finish the construction and then never reopened the catering.
Right.
Just everything
Right.
shut
That
down.
business went away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, those were very, very strange times. And I
Yes.
think, I don't know how much our audience knows, but building out a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, is a big and expensive endeavor. But anyway, so you managed to finish that, and then the world shut down, and you still opened. You still opened Pomella.
Yeah, because you know, people always think that I was something special for doing something so crazy, right? But the actual everyday of it is that, I borrowed money to create Pomella,
Sure.
and so I was on the hook. And I had to guarantee it personally
Yeah.
because, as I mentioned, I had bankrupt. So I had to get a local organization to help me secure an SBA loan.
Yeah.
In addition, I also had previous employees come back to work for me. So they
Yeah.
had left their jobs. And in March of 2020, none of us knew that everyone was going to get unemployment, right? So the law was that if you quit your job, you do not get unemployment. So I was like, these people quit their jobs to come work for me.
Yeah.
And I can't screw them over. These are people that have worked for me for a long time.
Sure.
Obviously they came back for me. So, I remember, getting my permit, getting home. I had 6 rolls of toilet paper. I had dog food. I was like, okay, we're good. You know, what do we do now? So that's why I decided to open. Had nothing to do with anything. Had to do with like, these were the circumstances. And I had to open because taking a chance was better than just dead.
Sure.
I mean,
For
what you
sure.
gonna do?
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I thought that was
It's like
great.
something over nothing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's not glamorous over here in
No, I
this
understand.
industry. There's not, very little glamour. It's not like it looks on TV. The decisions are very practical. So when I went to that food industry business class earlier in the year, I had met a person that was more from the tech world. They used to work for Crust or something like that, like a crowdfunding at the time, kind of like a GoFundMe, but it was a different one for food businesses. And I met them and we became really good friends. And I started working with them. They taught me a lot about social media, which was something I didn't really use when I had the bite. I never used. And so we helped each other. They were trying to launch a focaccia business and I was launching a restaurant and I had food knowledge and they had tech knowledge. And so we helped each other. So when this whole came down and the world shut down and I needed an online store, the two of us basically created one overnight. And our first money in was March 25 of 2020. Basically, we had an online store and people for prepared meals that were packaged with instructions for people to take home. And I knew how to package because remember, we just talked about the munchery days. So if there's something that
Right.
I knew how to do was how to
Interesting.
make food, cool
Yeah.
the food, package the food, how to put very clear heating instructions so people are successful. And I had a whole menu of dishes that would work for this format.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah,
Mhm.
I just had the right experience. So our biggest benefit was that we didn't have to reinvent ourselves. We just had to invent ourselves. So that's easier to
Mhm.
invent than to change. So while everyone was shutting down, figure out what to do, we hit the ground running. We
Yeah.
already knew how to package. And I knew even how to package. Like we had. This is not to be underestimated because a lot of restaurants fell on that. For a lot of restaurants, the food, the plating of the food, the environment of the restaurant that was part of what they were selling. So when they were selling just their food in a box, it was disappointing.
Yeah. Sure.
You know,
I mean, I would say it's almost never as nice as on a plate, but there's a big difference between doing it well and doing it not so well. I was in the prepared food business, so
so you know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, of course.
It's its
Of
own
course.
thing, right?
Yeah.
It's very different than a restaurant. Prepared food is
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we had a lot of technical glitches, and people always ask me about that show, The Bear. Did you ever watch The Bear?
It just one episode, not I mean one season, but yeah.
The first season is pretty good, except that there's no money in the tomato cans.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But there's an episode where they decide to start selling online, and they can't figure out how the printer works, and then the printer goes insane, and they don't have enough food. That literally that was week one.
That happened, yeah.
When I went to bed the night before, we had very few orders, so we were like, okay, we'll figure it out, because we couldn't integrate the printers. And then by the time we actually got the printers to work, it went crazy, and we ran out of food. And I remember coming out and explaining to people that we just ran out of food, and I'm so sorry. Can they come back tomorrow, because we just didn't have it.
Yeah.
So that was day one. And then we actually changed platforms 4 different times, because Chow Now, the platform that was existing for restaurants to sell food, I don't know if you remember that platform, they didn't have e-commerce sensibility. It was just for food to be ready now. So it was very hard to schedule. There was no scheduling of pickup time, so everyone came up at the same time. It was impossible. There was no inventory controls. They were missing some really crucial things. So immediately we looked for e-commerce to have some more functions about like how to sell the food. And we switched platforms over and over again, because we kept needing features. Like, for example, later on, we started having hot food as well. Now, shockingly, everyone wants their food at the same exact time. So everyone orders for 6 p.m., right?
Yeah, but so this was, prepared meal services usually deliver your food, let's say at night, you find it in a cooler, and then you eat it that same day or through the week. So this wasn't exactly that. This was more of a restaurant with pickup, if people
It
wanted it
was
at 6
both.
p.m. Yeah.
So at first it was cold with instructions. We had 3 days for pickup, and we wanted people to be able to schedule their pickup for a specific time, because we couldn't have all the bags ready all at the same time. So that was stage one. Few months down the road, we decided to also add, in addition to this, hot food. So people could order some cold food for tomorrow, let's say, but also some hot food that's made right now to eat right now. That complicated things. That's why we needed to change platforms again. And again, the issue constantly was that everyone wants their stuff at the same time. And they had to pick up. We did not have delivery
Because you
capability.
did not do delivery, yeah.
At that point, no, we did not have the...
Well, we should talk prepared meal services, but never mind. Let's go on.
No. This is layered, because we just rolled into it. So it wasn't even the initial business plan. So there were no drivers. There were no, we didn't have the infrastructure to start delivering.
Okay, so I have to say, I thought of you, and maybe this was already a few months later, as a restaurant.
That was a few months later.
That was a few months later, and you could order in advance, but you could just come up to the counter or the wall and place your order. And a few minutes later, or 10, 15 minutes later, it came out, and then you sat outside because it was COVID. So the restaurant, you didn't go into the restaurant, even though you had a really nice space, but you did have a patio, and you could come, order at the window, and then the food would come out. And then
so that was like later on in the program. And talk about ordering in the window, we had to rewire everything, because we had built the counter for people to come in and order at the counter.
Sure.
And then we weren't able to let people into our space. And so we opened legit like a window. And we had to rewire the POS into the window.
So fast forward. So COVID dies down, And I
Yes.
assume you became a restaurant, and that I did
Yes.
not experience because I was not there. So you
Mhm.
became a legitimate, it's not legitimate, you were
No,
legitimate
no,
all
we became.
along, but a normal restaurant, non-COVID, people could walk up to the counter that you had designed. They could enjoy the beautiful mural you had inside. They could
Mhm.
eat inside or outside. And you became much more of a regular restaurant. Um,
Yes, but still, because we did all that work to sell online,
mhm,
and later on we integrated with third-party delivery so people could order from my website and get delivery
mhm.
from DoorDash. And later on we also integrated with third party as a whole. So we worked with, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub. But all that set aside, because of the way we started and because of the way both the world changed and the way that we taught our customers to shop with us, till the end, our biggest sales were online.
Interesting. Okay.
So even though we were, as you were saying, a full-fledged restaurant that you can come and order and eat, the real money was not on site. The real money was coming from online orders, whether it was directly, and that was the biggest sales, were directly through our website.
Okay.
Because customer habits had changed and because we installed such a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the issues that ended up uh, closing the restaurant because we didn't need that space. I was paying an enormous amount of money. It was so expensive between, the rent, the triple net, the insurance, the additional employees, everything that took, the janitorial, everything that took to maintain the space
Mm-hmm.
that basically I didn't need for the business that we had become.
So what does that mean? So you're saying when you closed it, are you still running it as because what that sounds like is what's called a ghost kitchen or delivery only
Mhm.
kitchen. Are you
Well,
still running it as that?
I'm
You
completely
complete.
closed right now because I needed to close and reassess the situation and figure out what I want to do. So that's that. But I was just jumping ahead and saying like what we did through COVID was pretty groundbreaking. We
Yeah.
completely created a different way of shopping and interacting, and it wasn't a kitchen because in a ghost kitchen, it's the same 5 cooks are cooking, 5 different restaurants. It's very
Hamburgers,
different.
fried chicken, and tacos. Yeah.
Yeah. No. What we did was very much ours. It was to brand. And, but we kept making both meals as a restaurant and we made canned goods, jams, pastries, cookies, things, staples to take home.
Mm-hmm.
Like frozen falafel, frozen cheese falafel, soups, frozen soups to take home. So we always had those extra sales of what we called the pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And always we had a very robust online store that was a huge part of our business was the tech. Like I could not put anything on the menu without having to take photos and building the item and putting it online. And only then we would activate a menu item.
Right. Okay.
So our
Okay.
whole way of existing as a restaurant, the whole way that we sold food as a restaurant was completely different and directly affected by the changes that COVID created, I think, forever in our industry.
So at what point were you the most profitable? I assume
2022. 2022
2022.
was epic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because people were still hesitant about leaving the house and the economy was still really good. And here's the thing about online shopping. People buy more when because they click, 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 click. How often have you gone to shop online for anything and ended up with more than the thing that you went to shop for, right? So online shopping is its own behavior and it's different than at the restaurant. You go to a restaurant, you order something to eat, maybe a drink, often just water. And if we really are lucky, you order dessert to share. But when you order food online, get some appetizers and maybe hummus for
Just-
tomorrow's lunch and extra pita, and I want some vegetable. Oh, and I love that sauce. And look, they have this new, dessert, and I'm gonna grab that. And oh, you know what? Let's get some soup to have in the freezer, right? That's how you shop when you shop online. And if I get good enough photos, and if my descriptions are fun, and if I send you a newsletter that, tells you what we're doing this week, and if you feel an emotional attachment to my product, then when you go online, you're going to buy a lot more stuff. So
Right.
2022 was incredible for us. We already knew how to operate this. We were very good at this. People were shopping online, and they were starting to eat out, but still they were shopping more online, and the economy was very good. The economy started slowing down, like the third, fourth quarter of 23. I started to see a shift where people were ordering less. All of a sudden, they're not taking extra 3 different sauces, We could see that tickets were just starting to get a little bit smaller. That was, third quarter of 23. That's when I started seeing a shift in the economy. And if you look, I always say that we're the canaries because we're small businesses. So we can see when the economy changes much faster.
So you were getting less orders, or each order was less, or both?
Both.
Both, I see.
We were still, I would say, we were getting more people to eat on site, which again is less money spent. And also it's more expensive because now I need to have more employees. So now I have to clean after you.
Right. Right. And serve you and ask for your order and so forth and so on, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to have more employees. The orders were smaller. And that was the most significant change in 23. 24 was just a free fall. 24 was a free fall. We did see a little bit of an improvement toward the end of the year before the election.
Yeah.
But after the election, people went in the Bay Area, just went to bed and covered themselves in a blanket and cried a river.
Right.
And also there was an atmospheric river, which was a new thing where we would get flooded, the rain would come, and people in the Bay Area, cannot handle rain. It's not something that we do.
No, I lived in LA for many years, and they can't handle rain either. Like, they never really heard of roofing. Roofing is an interesting concept, but I know. Okay. So you attribute that 2024, 25 free fall to the economy and to politics. Is that right?
As well as the Israeli conflict, and October 7th of 23, was a pivotal point for us. Well, first of all, because I'm Israeli, and so the trauma, the shock of it, all of it, took me down. I wasn't functioning at 100%. I also felt betrayed in a way, and because people turned on me, and without asking for my political opinion, just because I was Israeli, people turned on me, and I really feel that this is my home, and that this is my community, and I felt really personally hurt. Like, people were attacking me online, on social media, and directly through my email, and it was shocking to me to be attacked to this degree, and it was incredibly hurtful. And people attacked me without even asking, hey, is your family okay? Because were they killed, kidnapped, raped? Like, no one was asking me that. And people were like, unless you say blah, 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 we're going to shopping with you. And I'm like, stop shopping with you. And I'm like, really? I have to say special things? And, and again, this is not for me voicing a political opinion. This is for my country of origin.
Yeah.
So, so then every day started with blocking and deleting people on social media, because our social media policy was that we don't do politics, and that we don't do hate speech, that we don't interact with that. So, just my everyday was so emotionally taxing that I couldn't really focus on how do we get the business to recover, and I had a bunch of catering work already because we had gone back to catering. So, it was in October. So we're going into fourth quarter, that's a very busy catering quarter. October is huge for catering. September, October are huge for catering. And then December, of course, is the holidays. So, yeah. So I was trying to just get through the day. So by the time 23 was done, I was pretty done.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
I also turned 50. I decided to just go to Baja for a few days and just like relax and try to gain my footing and try to get back on track. And I did, and I came back in the beginning of 24, and I was like, okay, let's try to sort this out. I was accepted to a James Beard Foundation well program. It's a very exclusive program for women. Yeah, really
Nice.
amazing.
Yeah.
I went through the program. I wrote a business plan, decided to expand Pomella, to open a bunch of satellite locations, and then move the hub. Because as I mentioned, the hub was no longer making any sense. It wasn't the right space for us.
Yes.
But, about 24, I just couldn't make it happen. And the economy kept deteriorating, and I just couldn't make it happen. Real estate market here in the Bay Area is very, very interesting. So I couldn't find the locations. I couldn't make it happen. I was still struggling, and we lost money in 24. So when 25 rolled in and the sales were 15% lower, so January 25 was 15 day-to-day % lower than January 24. Midway through the month, I made the decision to close.
I see.
There was no point. Numbers are numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking how fast things change.
Yes, it is. It's not like your food has changed.
No, not the food, not the service, not anything, really. And we kept, yeah. But customer habits have changed for sure.
Meaning taking away the Israeli Arab conflict, you're saying that people had less money to spend, were less willing to go out and buy prepared food. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, I think that people, when they have less money, we always say they go like this in the food industry. They go for the lowest, cheapest, and then for the highest. Because when they do spend money on food, they want to have date night. They want to go to the new place that just opened. They want to go to the atmosphere, the cocktails, the sexy place. When they do finally spend the money, they'll go out on the weekend and they'll go to a fancy place. And throughout the week, they'll try to find the cheapest, kind of solution to how they feed themselves and their families. So it kind of split. And we were right there in the middle. We are fine casual, where quality of the food is really high and it's organic and it's good for you, but it's everyday food. So that's why, we were just in the wrong place in the industry. Now, such a place does have room in the industry, but with a very small footprint.
Yes.
And we had a 3,000 square feet facility.
Right. So are you saying that ultimately, if the rent had been lower, meaning you were in a smaller space, or just the rent were lower, it would have still worked?
No, I could have negotiated a lower rent. The problem is not the rent. It's the rent, the triple net, which is the expenses of the building, which in 24 were almost $6,000 a month in triple net. Because the insurance in Oakland's gotten so high because of the crime rate, that my landlord's insurance went high. And that is split between the tenants.
Okay.
So my insurance was skyrocketed too, because we had, we're in an area where there's earthquakes and fires, and now we were having floods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And crime.
Yeah.
So everything that has to do with space is more than rent. People always think it's rent. No. Rent is just one piece of maintaining a space. So, so there's also maintaining the space. So everything breaks all the time. Everything has to be fixed all the time. Everything has to be cleaned all the time. And when you have a large space, you can't have someone that's working on the counter just turn around and say something to the cook, right? You need to have someone that runs between the kitchen and the front.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's different.
It's different. You have to have someone that's constantly like cleaning and bussing tables when you're in service. And those people need to be there whether we're busy or not, because what if we get busy?
Well, yeah. That's assuming that you are doing table service.
So
Yeah.
we were doing all of the above, and the space was really large. So then I said, okay, let's try to use the space. And I lent the space to every kind of event that you can imagine. But also we were in the building with very high ceiling, and my neighbor had taken over the upstairs as well. So we were flooded with noise. So we couldn't even use the space for events because of the noise. And also if our event made noise, then our neighbor would complain. But there's a million different reasons why this specific space just no longer fit the business model.
Right.
It just, the space was wrong. I mean, I signed this lease in June of 2019.
Oh no, I understand. I understand where things change. So no, I was, I wrote myself a note here. So what is the postmortem? So that's kind of like what happened, and because I was distant from it since I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean, a
living in Oakland
million
anymore.
little things happen. A
Yeah.
million little things happened all at the same time. Well, let's talk about inflation and how my costs were just insane. And my vendors, prices just kept going up and up and up and up. And then,
Yes.
so people spend, even when they do order, they order less because everything's expensive. And, I did raise my prices, but I couldn't really raise the prices to a degree that would cover my expenses. And also, when I established Pomella, the whole point of Pomella was to create an everyone win business. So the idea behind Pomella, our North Star, was to create an everyone win environment where everyone that interacts with the brand is winning, from the customer to the dishwasher to the vendors to the landlord. The idea was that everyone that touches us wins just by being part of our universe. And by the time I needed to close, I wasn't winning.
Yeah.
I was personally losing,
Yeah.
and I felt that the customers, I couldn't control the prices so they could still have a really good organic meal for a fair price, because nothing is fair. There's no fair price anymore. So, I had to go. And more than anything, I just wasn't winning. I was losing money, and I felt really like I was second judging my entire community over what was happening.
Yeah. I understand that. So, we scheduled this, or we talked about this podcast a while ago, and then you were going away for a few weeks, and actually, and going home, I think, for a few weeks or
Yeah,
to,
I went to Israel. Yeah, I've been
yeah,
traveling.
which is a good thing to do. I think like getting away
Mhm.
is the best to clear your mind. Um, what are your plans now? More travel? Do you have is something forming in your mind of what you want to do next?
I really thought that by now I would have a greater idea of what I want to do next. I
Okay.
don't. I have taken some catering for this month just to kind of get more money with one of my regular clients. But no, I'm not sure. There's a couple of things that I wanted to do with Pomella that I didn't get to do, and I kind of still want to do, but I don't want to do it in the same fashion. So I still want to have a more casual brand that we can have multiple locations of, because I think there's a need and there's a place for that in the market. And I think that there's a need and a place for the casual kind of food that we did at Pomela. Just a different kind of format, different space, different locations. I think it's economy of scale. If you have three of them, it starts making sense. So that's one thing that I wanted to do and I didn't get to do. And the other thing that I wanted to do is really elevate the cuisine. Like we see it in some markets, just not in our market, but like you see it in New Orleans and in New York and, you know, Philadelphia. There's many like finer dining Israeli establishments. So I really think we can elevate the food. And one of the business models that's been fascinating for me lately is a mixed-use space where the space can be different things at different times of the day. So it could be a casual counter for lunch with a friend, and it can be a bar and small plates in the evening, and it can be an event space, and it can be a community space, and it can be all those things under one roof, and just take a space and slice it certain way where it can be all those things, because I really feel, and of course events and catering is key, I really feel that as the economy is, God knows where, is happening to this economy in this uncertain times, I should say, uncertain economic times, uncertain times period, I think that diversification of revenue streams is key. So, and I think that under the kind of food that I make, there's so much possibility to do all of the above. And, I've also always been a community person. So, always had this ability to kind of just, engage the community, invite people in, allow people, we used to have Zumba on the patio 4 times a week, right? Like, anything and everything.
Yeah.
We did like queer speed dating. We did, I don't know, event for Bumble. We did political letter writing. We did workshops with like dry flowers and painting workshops. I mean, you name it. So it's always been part of what I love to do. So I think, it's a great idea to have all of the above in the same building, including that piece that I've been really wanting to do for a very long time of like cocktails and smaller plates and, that kind of service. So those are two things that I never got to do with Pomella that I would still like to do, but I don't think I would go on my own at that. I think I would like to be a part of a group or something like that, where, because I saw my own limits. Basically, I saw my limitations in 24 when I wanted to expand, and I just wasn't able to do that, and I kept getting pulled back into operations.
Yes.
And so I saw that I personally have a limit there, where I couldn't do both.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know many people who do, but
No, people tend to do these things in groups. You're right. It's generally not done as a single operator like you're trying to do it. And there are actually, well, I could, offline, but I could introduce you to a few people. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, but I think within a group, it is possible. It'd be great. These are really things that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. So, I'd love to do them. But right this minute in time, nothing feels burning to me as it did in previous junctions in my career. So every time until now, I kind of had a thing that I wanted to do, and things kind of came into place. And maybe I ended up doing a different thing than what I wanted to do, but I was going somewhere, and now I don't have that strong, so yeah, I wanted to be a fine dine pastry chef, but then I got into catering and I loved that. And so I moved in. Then I had the opportunity, just fell in my lap to get a bigger catering company. Like everything that I did, even if I thought I was just looking for a commissary and ended up opening a restaurant. But, I was going, even if I ended up getting a different place, I was going. And right now I don't feel that yet,
it'll come. I
not
think you
there.
need to let it ferment, I guess. I'm not sure what the right term would be.
Marinate.
Marinate.
I'm marinating.
Okay. Okay. Well, this was fascinating to me. Like, there are a lot of things that there's a lot of depth in what you were saying, and a lot of different models that you followed that I was not aware of. So, yeah, it's gonna give me a lot of food for thought. So,
I mean, our
uh,
industry is very diverse. It's diverse. People get to it from different angles. And, through that program that I did at the James Beard Foundation, some of the women in the program, there's like around 200 alumni of this program nationwide. And I did get to meet a good amount of them. And it's such a mixed bag. I mean, no two of us are the same. Some of us are chefs. Some of us are business women,
Yeah.
some of us are both. Some of us have, prepared foods that they sell, at stores. And it's just such a diverse industry.
Yeah. No. I understand what you're saying. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to follow up with you. I have more to talk about. Maybe we need another episode.
Well, you know where to find me. And I'm very open and very transparent. I'm happy to always share information.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mica.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.